Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating. Well, people don't like it when I say the word dissertate, but anyway, I'm going to be talking about introversion and extroversion based on an astrological chart, or better yet, whether a person may be more inclined to be an introvert or extrovert based on their natal chart. Now, there's two fundamental things that I look at when I decipher a chart and you look for introversion or extroversion. The first thing is I would look and see how many planets, and also including the MC and the ascendant, how many of these are in extroverted or masculine signs. If you have, say, 8 of those 12 energies in extroverted or masculine signs, then there may be more of an inclination toward extroversion and being around people. If the person has, say, like 4, if they have, I guess another way to be more specific, if somebody has 7 or more, between 7 and 12 of those energies in masculine signs, the inclination may be toward extroversion. But if there's, say, if there's 6, there might be a balance as far as equilibrium between the privacy, the seclusion, introversion, and being gregarious. Now, if somebody has less than 6, it may incline more toward introversion. Now, the other thing I would look at, and this is just simply how the planets are dispersed in the chart itself. So, if somebody has a majority of their planets in the bottom half of their chart, below the horizon, between houses 1 through 6, that could incline more toward introversion. If they have the majority of the planets between houses 7 and 12, that would incline more toward extroversion. If it's evenly dispersed and you have 5 between houses 1 through 6 and 5 in houses 7 through 12, this could indicate a good balance or a vacillation maybe between introversion and extroversion in the horoscope. Now, many of you may wonder, okay, well, let's say I have, someone has like 8 of their planets in masculine signs, but they had like 7 of the planets below the horizon. Well, this would indicate somewhat of a balance more. It could indicate too, if somebody, let's take somebody that has an outgoing rising sign or a masculine rising sign. I had a friend of mine, or still have him, he has Gemini rising, but most of his planets are below the horizon. If I'm not mistaken, he only has 1 between houses 7 through 12. He's outgoing with people, like maybe in close groups. He might not be so much going out places where a lot of people would congregate, but in smaller groups he could be very outgoing. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you have, say you have the majority of your planets or preponderance of your planets fall below the horizon in your natal chart, but you have an ascendant and an outgoing sign, you're still going to have certain extroversion on some level. Now, another thing is, my grandmother, God rest her soul, she had Scorpio rising. She had the majority of her planets, though, on the top portion of the horizon. I don't remember exactly, it may have been like 7 on top, 3 on the bottom. And she also had her sun in Leo, and her moon was in Aquarius. They're both in masculine signs. However, she was the kind of person that was very kind of discreet, inconspicuous, someone very kind of secretive, which I read on one source online, sometimes sometimes it said that Scorpio, or maybe just in general, that Scorpio rising can change the dynamic or complexion of the whole chart. And a sign like Scorpio rising even if the other indicators in the chart may indicate toward extroversion more, it could show that it can really help, not help, it could really modify things very strongly. And she was very private. I mean, she didn't dress in the typical, the Leo flamboyant type outfits, as I was talking about in that video, Zodiac Signs and Fashion. And she was very conservative and dressed wore dark glasses a lot, and her demeanor was very quiet, and it seemed like the Scorpio strongly took over in her horoscope. So you have to factor a lot of elements in. When you're delineating a chart, you're looking at attributes that indicate outgoingness, as opposed to somebody that's a little bit more, I guess you could say, inhibited in expressing, I guess you could say, and as far as expression with other people, or being more I guess you could say, being more outgoing and doing things outside of the home. Now, like in my chart, for instance, I have 8 of the 10 planets below the horizon. I have 4 planets in masculine signs, 6 in feminine, and my ascendant is in a feminine sign, so in Taurus, so that's going to indicate strongly more introversion. Now, the thing too is, even though the 12th house is above the horizon, one of my 2 planets are in the 12th. The 12th, as an argument could be made, that could be like an introverted house, that could be very someone secretive. Saturn in the 12th house, which I have, is someone that could be very desirous of seclusion and solitude. So you have to look at everything completely. It's not, it is fairly, once you get the hang of it, it is fairly easy, but there are a lot of little nuances that that I would look at in terms of interpreting whether your chart would be more extroverted or introverted. It's just looking at all the elements in it. And another thing too is what I would look at. I mean, let's say somebody had 5 planets in masculine signs, and they had 5 in feminine signs. Okay, right on the surface, okay, that sounds like that's a balance between extroversion and introversion. However, if only one of those planets, say hypothetically, if only one of them was in a masculine sign, I'm sorry, only one, I said before, okay, 5, let's say if there were 5 and 5, even distribution, okay, but let's say only one of them was in a personal planet, and you had, say, Mercury was in a masculine sign, but the other 4 planets in masculine signs were all outer planets, like Saturn or Pluto, then you'd have to take that into consideration, because the personal planets, obviously, by sign anyway, are going to have a greater impact on that person's demeanor. And generational planets, people have these in them, like say Jupiter is about a year to 12, 13 months maybe on average in a sign, so its effect won't be as strong. Now conversely, let's take the 5 and 5 example again, and somebody has 5 planets in masculine signs, 5 in feminine, and let's say 4 of those planets are personal planets. Now then you see a stronger balance with the as far as the introversion, extroversion. You could actually do a point system, maybe. That's one way you can perhaps quote-unquote calculate maybe introversion versus extroversion in your natal chart. And when I say this, I would assign maybe 2 points for every for the personal planets, in as far as masculine signs go, and the same as personal planets in feminine signs. 2 points for them, and then 1 point for each generational planet. And then when you get those totals, look and see how many planets you have above the horizon or below. As far as planets above or below the horizon, I would put 1 point for each of them, because the fact that we were talking about planets and houses, is a 1 in 12 probability on average. But if you look at planets in signs, if you have a generational planet, somebody for say somebody that has Pluto in Scorpio, well, maybe somebody, I don't remember exactly how long Pluto stayed in Scorpio, but let's say it was 15 years. For a 15-year period, everybody in that period would have it, so it doesn't have as much significance by sign. But I would still, based on the planet distribution in the chart, in terms of houses 1 through 6 or 7 through 12, I would give each planet a 1, a sign at 1 point. And if you have more, say you have more points in the introversion, it could indicate somebody that might be a little bit more introvert. And also what I want to tell you is, I neglected this, I'm sorry, also give 2 points for the ascendant and MC or midheaven as well, and factor that into the equation. So if the midheaven is always the 10th house, so you're not going to assign, everybody's going to have the midheaven on the 10th house cusp, of course. So you're just going to look at the sign on that and give that, you would put that, I guess we could say, if it's in a masculine sign such as Aquarius, you give it 2 points over to the extroverted total. Or if you go to the ascendant, that would be 2 points, and I have Taurus ascendant, so 2 points would go into the, I guess we could say the introverted, bin or what have you. We have, if somebody has, say when you're done adding everything up and you have, I don't know if, I'm just throwing this out there arbitrarily, but if you have like the same amount of points for introversion, same amount for extroversion, you might have a balance. You might have somebody that may fluctuate between introversion and extroversion. If you have a lot more going one way, then obviously you would be looking at it as more introverted. Say if you had more points for introversion, and if it was like 5 or 6 more points at least as opposed to the extroversion, then you might have somebody significantly more introverted than extroverted, and vice versa. And again, let me round it up one more time. The key is just look at how your planets are dispersed. Look at the in terms of houses 1 through 6 or 7 through 12, and then look and see. Look at your ascendant, midheaven, see if that's in an introverted or extroverted signs, and then look at your planets. And when you're tallying, things up, like I said before, personal planets equals 2 points each. That would be Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. The outer planets or generational planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, 1 point each. 1 point for as far as the planet in the sign, but as far as the house distribution, you'd give 1 point for each of them. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for introversion versus extroversion in a natal chart. Stay tuned next time, where I'll be continuing my Chiron aspect series. 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because a person, astrologically, is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.